four guys that initially started it was on February 1st. My parents could not afford for me to stay on campus, so I found out about it on the second day, and how I found out about it was that a young man by the name of Ezel Brooker, that we had started in the first grade together all the way to college, and so he came back to A&T on the 2nd of February 1960, and I was supposed to be in class, but I was cutting class because of the major that I had chosen. I did not like it. I chose one of my other friends had chosen a major, which was biology or chemistry. And so he asked me if I would participate. And one thing that ran through my mind is that either consciously or subconsciously, I thought about how I'd been treated all my life. And I knew that I was just like everybody else, a citizen of the United States, but was being treated differently. So I agreed to participate.
Americans are capable of achieving extraordinary things when they have the freedom and opportunity to do so. This is American Potential.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the American Potential Podcast. I'm your host, David Fromm. You know, if you're someone who's interested in history, you'll hopefully like this episode, because our guest today not only talks about history and is well steeped in history, but he made history as part of the 1960s civil rights movement. So before we get to him, I want to bring in engineer Matt to talk about some of the cool historical places that he's been and been able to visit. Matt, tell me about, like I said, I'm excited to talk to Clarence about his participation in history. Some of us haven't been as active in major historical events, but we've seen a lot of cool stuff that reminds us of our history as Americans. What's some of the stuff you've seen?
Oh, well, for one, traveling with this show gets you out and seeing awesome historical stuff all the time. And we had some really cool opportunities to, well, for example, we did go to Philadelphia. That was very historical and cool. And then I might have mentioned this once before on the show, I am a little bit of a World War II history buff, and I really enjoyed visiting the battleship New Jersey, and they've got it as a museum now. It's a really cool, one of the last great World War II battleships. That was neat. And then we got the film not too long ago at a World War II destroyer right in front of it on the pier there. So That was cool. That was the USS Orleck. So for me, being a little bit of a World War II history guy, those are really fun for me.
No, that's cool. I love it because there's so many different eras. That's one of the fun things about enjoying history. I've always loved history. What got me involved and interested in politics. I can't believe it when my kids don't love history. I'm like, no, this documentary really is cool. We should go to this place. But, for me, some of the highlights, I've been to the Alamo down in San Antonio, which is kind of cool. The story of the Alamo is cool. It's certainly, like everyone always says, it's smaller than you realize. But it was pretty cool to be like, all right, this is the Alamo. Pretty iconic. A lot of sites in Virginia. I've been to, in Richmond, seeing places like, the old state capitol. The state capitol in Virginia is pretty cool because Jefferson designed it. You wander around Virginia, you just bump into places. I grew up near Morristown, where George Washington's headquarters was during the Revolutionary War, and then recently we were up in Boston, and saw where the Boston Tea Party was, and went to tavern where the Sons of Liberty were formed, and went to Cheers.
See, you can't forget that
part. Maybe not quite the same, but it's still good times.
There's a little difference in the level of history between, the Tea Party and Cheers, but I'll take it.
Yeah. Well, our guest today has lived in a pretty amazing life and made a lot of history. It's one thing to walk through a historical place and read the plaque or listen to a tour guide, but it's different when you get to hear the story from somebody who actually lived it. Today's guest didn't know he was going to make history, but just knew something needed to change. So one day, he did something that sounds simple, but back then, it could have gotten him beaten, arrested, or even worse. The simple act of sitting and trying to get served at a lunch counter doesn't seem like a big thing nowadays. But if you were Black and in the South in the 1960s, it wasn't so simple. I want to welcome to the podcast our guest for today, Clarence Henderson, who took part in the Woolworth lunch counter sit-in in Greensboro, North Carolina. Clarence, thank you so much for joining us.
I am delighted to be here.
Well, I'm so excited to talk about your story. We've at our podcast and our company, we've been talking about a thing called the One Small Step campaign, and it's just that people never always know. Like they take a step and they can change history. Like America's history is, replete with these examples of people who took a simple step and it led them down a path or led our nation down a path to change history. And I think yours is certainly one of those stories. So I can't wait for us to get into it. But before we start, you lived in North Carolina. Talk about what it was like for your family there, and for you growing up in North Carolina.
Well, David, if you remember, this was the era of time known as Jim Crow.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically like we were one step above slavery in that we were being judged by the color of our skin rather than the content of character. And we were more like subjects than anything else. And so it, over time, it takes a toll on you. And it's good that I'm able to share with you today so that people understand how it was then versus how it is now.
So now your family had they been in North Carolina for a long time? I mean, how did they come to be there?
Yes. I was born in a place called Townville, South Carolina. My father was a ticket farmer, which meant that he was working for someone else who was a white guy. And they became best friends. And actually, my father named me after him. And I believe in divine intervention in that I was called into this rather than me having an idea that I was going to be involved. And so we moved to Greensboro when I was about 3 or 4 years of age. I can remember trying to have my mother pick cotton in the cotton fields in South Carolina. So we moved here. It was 5 of us, and I'm the last one of my immediate family left.
So you grew up in you're near Greensboro, and
yeah,
just describe what it was like living under Jim Crow conditions.
Well, what it was is that it was like there was an expectation of where we were supposed to be as a people, mm-hmm. whereby that we had one set of laws with us versus another set of laws for others, and that in public facilities, in certain public facilities, that we needed to be separate. But as I've grown older, my question has been, since I understood, if we are equal, then why do we need to be separate? Because that's what Jim Crow said. And I can remember walking down the street in Greensboro being called the N-word, just going through various situations, not caused by something I did, but because how people perceive me as opposed to who I was. And how did so this gave rise to a number of really young people and older people like yourself who challenged that system eventually. When you're growing up in that, how does that make you feel, emotionally? One of the things that is true in my memories, I talked about these various things, is that during the time I was in school, I basically lived in 2 worlds in that we first moved to the black neighborhood, quote unquote black neighborhood, and then when I went to the 3rd grade, my father moved us. I don't know how familiar you are with Greensboro. They moved us near Women's College, which is now UNCG, and I was in walking distance of that place. So even though they had moved me out of that school district, they still bused me back to the same school district where at lunchtime, all my interactions with other black kids, and at lunchtime I played with the black kids. But when I went home, because we lived like in a cul-de-sac where it was 4 houses where blacks lived, and surrounded by white neighbors, so I basically was living in an integrated neighborhood. And what happened was that there were the kids that I played with during that time were white kids. They would come to my house. We had a huge yard, and we played different sports: football, basketball, baseball. As a matter of fact, I built a gym and I built a basketball court. We played there, and the parents didn't know where the kids were because, at the time, all they said was be home before dark. And so, living in that kind of situation, I found out that I again understood, and later on understood that there's a racist. We're not a person not born in racist. They are they're indoctrinated into it.
Mm.
As the parents saw us one way, the kids saw us just other kids saw me just another child could have played with.
So then eventually you went to college. I believe you were the first in your family, right, to go to college?
Like I said,
Really? Nice.
First one to complete.
And then that led you to when you ended up sitting at the Woolworth counter. How did you go from like getting to college to wanting to engage in that kind of activism? What kind of brought you on that continuum to take that?
It was not my intention. As a matter of fact, again, I believe it was divine intervention because the four guys that initially started it was on February 1st. My parents could not afford me to stay on campus, so I found out about it on the second day, and how I found out about it was that a young man by the name of Ezel Blair, that we had started in the first grade together all the way to college, and so he came back to A&T on the 2nd of February 1960, and I was supposed to be in class, but I was cutting class because of the major that I had chosen. I did not like it. I chose it because one of my other friends had chosen that major, which was biology or chemistry. And so he asked me if I would participate. And one thing that ran through my mind is that either consciously or subconsciously, I thought about how I'd been treated all my life. And I knew that I was just like everybody else, a citizen of the United States, but was being treated differently. So I agreed to participate. And what happened was that we walked from the A&T campus down to downtown Greensboro, and Ezel was still a very talkative person, and incessant all the time. And on the particular time we were going down to Woolworth, he didn't say much. I didn't say anything because I perceived it as being different because my parents and my mother used to go downtown Greensboro when I was growing up, and we went to Woolworth a number of times, and I saw things that were there then that were still there when we went in on that day, which was that everything in Woolworth was the same. It was a public facility, except for downstairs you had two bathrooms, one set in color, one set in white, two water fountains, one set in color, one set in white. And I used to look at the water coming out of the water fountain. I wonder what the difference was because they looked the same. And then when you went upstairs, they had a lunch counter where they served people at the lunch counter, except for us, we had to order food to go. We could not sit down in the chairs beside anybody. It was white. And so paid the same amount of money for it. So all the way up until that time ended, that we were not able to sit at the lunch counter and eat. And what Ezel used as a carryout for me was that he said, if they serve us, then I'll pay for the meal because I didn't have any money. And he still owed me a meal. And so it was, when we walked into Woolworth that day, it was different for me in that I did not know how it was going to come out, whether in a vertical position, in handcuffs, going to jail, or in a prone position, going to the hospital or perhaps more. And so it changed my perspective on life. And that's why one of the reasons why I appreciate life so much right now, how precious it is.
So you're talking about the different ways you could leave Woolworths, prone or in handcuffs or something. But, what was going through your mind when you went to sit down? I mean, how fearful were you?
Well, I get that question all the time. And again, I was prepared for it in that, when young men my age at that time moving to a new neighborhood, the testosterone starts to kick up in. And it was always challenging that just about every day going to school or coming back after fights. So I became pretty good at that physically. And now I can't do what I did then, but my spirit is just as strong now as it was then. So that prepared me for that. So the short answer is no, I was not afraid to sit in the lunch counter. I can't speak for others, but I wasn't afraid.
How long did it take before? So you sit down there. I imagine nobody takes your order. How long before you're confronted by the authorities?
Oh, they came that same day. One cop came in. He said he stood there for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, just watching what was happening. And so he didn't make any moves. But I guess he did not know what to do because we were caught him by surprise. I don't know whether the cop came in on the first day or not, but on that he came in and eventually he left out.
And so these sit-ins became a regular thing. Like how did that progress? Like how did this spread? And what kind of impact do you think it had on the civil rights movement?
Well, it was the strategy was, of course, the strategy wasn't my strategy, but the strategy was that because Woolworth was a chain store, hopefully it was spread to the other stores and did all up and down the eastern coast, as on the southeastern coast. As a matter of fact, and in New York, they did boycott a day. Well, the lunch counter did a sit even though the lunch counter was integrated. So that was it just caught on like that. And so as far as the costs were concerned, it was said that it cost about $200,000 during that time to be worth millions about this time. So actually, what changed it was monetary, is about the money. Because just like what Dr. King, those did in the South and around Alabama, because it didn't ride the bus, it was a monetary effect. It took 176 days for the lunch counter to be integrated.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there were all things done to stop it. There was a bomb threat, and they closed the store down. But when they opened it back up, we started all over again. And then the KKK came in, and we faced them down. As a matter of fact, some of the powers that be went to the during that time, the chancellor was called president. Went to the president and demanded that he suspend us or put us out of school if we didn't stop the sitting movement. But he very wisely said that as long as they're peaceful, they go into class, what they do on their own time is up to them. And so that's how it continued. It continued all the way up until even when A&T closed down, you had the students from the other high school with the school high school I attended, they kept it going.
So after when your parents found out what you were doing, what was their reaction?
Funny thing, they didn't know about it. Found out about it until I found out about it through the newspaper. When I put the picture in the paper, when you see the picture for two us at the lunch counter on the fork on the right hand side, actually they had the wrong names down there. But my whole concentration was that what it later is that we put Jim Crow on trial. Jim Crow was found guilty, so we don't have any Jim Crow laws in this country any longer. No any slavery laws in this country. So that was America that was versus America that is now.
So after these protests, did you stay active in the civil rights movement? Like how else were you involved?
Well, yeah. What happened was after the first year of A&T, I dropped out of school. Went to work for a while, and I always wanted to see the Big Apple because and then I had a sour taste in my mouth based on the laws in North Carolina. So I decided I was going to the Big Apple. And one of my decisions was I was never coming back to Greensboro except to visit my parents. I never say never because after being there 6 or 7 years, whatever time frame was, Again, divine intervention stepped in, and during that time when I had as a college student, I had a deferment. But when Uncle Sam found out that I had dropped out of school, I was talking to my mother one day on the phone, and she told me that I got this letter, and I said, open it up and tell me what it said. And basically she said, Uncle Sam said he wants you. And I told her I'm not worried about it because he doesn't know where I am. But about 6 weeks from there, about that time, I got a copy of that same letter. And actually it was 3 of us that went down to White House State from Greensboro. I knew the other 2 guys, ironically, and I was the only one that was chosen. And so I went from being in the place that I wanted to be in a whole different kind of environment. Uncle Sam put me on a 20-day plane. I had never flown before. He didn't ask if I wanted to travel by a train or by a bus. Put me on a plane, took me to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and you're talking about a culture shock. And after I made an adjustment to that, then Uncle Sam moved me to a little further south to Fort Gordon, Georgia. Well, he wasn't through with me making adjustments because after I finished my basic training, he sent me to Fort Worth, Alabama, where George Wallace was governor. So the last 16 months of my time in the service was down with where George Wallace was the governor.
Oh, wow.
And so some of the things that happened during that time, I don't know whether you know what a sundown city is. Do you know what that is?
I do, yeah. It's a place where, in this case, black folks probably shouldn't be out after sundown.
Yeah. So right outside of Fort Rooker, we should go downtown to a city called Dothan, Alabama, where we went down to the club and places like that. But right outside Dothan, you had to go through a place called Enterprise. And they had one officer, I think it was one sheriff there. And one evening we left out and we had a flat tire. And so we changed the tire, and the sheriff, he was a real smart guy. He walked up to us and said, well, what are you guys doing? It's obvious we changed the tire. He says, this is what I'm going to tell you. He says, you need to have that tire changed before sundown. I didn't know sundown meant at that time, believe it or not. But we did get the tire changed. Another thing that happened on the campus, on the fort, was that I worked in as a cook, and I was an assistant mess sergeant during that time, and in charge of 16 GIs, 16 civilian KPs. And one day, black and white KPs, civilian KPs, and one day this black guy came to me and says, I don't work with that white guy no longer. And I said, what's the problem? He said, the white guy told me that'll kill all the N men and say N women for breed purposes. And I wasn't born at that time. And I went out there and asked him, did he say that? He denied it. That was just one of the incidents. Another one was that during the time when George Wallace was running for governor and Lyndon Baines Johnson was running for president, and Lyndon Baines Johnson was running for president, they had these small business cards that put a white man in the White House, not that N level Lyndon Baines Johnson. So those are some of the things I dealt with during the time I was growing up and during some of my younger years. But one of the things that happened is that, and I moved various places. At one point, I lived in Baltimore, outside Baltimore, Maryland, which is not still in the South. And I was walking down the street and I called the N-word there. And I lived in Columbus, Ohio, and the same thing happened there. So it was just basically all the United States. And because when you have a person that has that kind of ideology, it's a mindset, and no matter what, some of them still don't change their mindset.
As you go around, and I know you talk to a lot of young people, and I think this is so valuable because it's a part of history that most people, the vast majority of Americans, haven't lived through, right? And you have, and you can kind of give a firsthand account. What do you tell the young people, and what kind of questions do you get from students?
Well, first of all, they have to know their history. And they have to know that their America Now, it's not the American being when I was growing up and the changes that have occurred. And what they need to look for is different forms of ideology that come under the definition of oppression, committing tyranny upon people. And when they find those kind of things, the question is, will you defend the country that you live in? Because freedom is not free. It's a price that must be paid. It must be paid in full. It must be paid up front. So it requires a citizen of the United States to have the courage to speak up and go through the necessary constitution rights they have to defend this country, because there's how to defend I will lose. You see, that's what's happening right now. So I go around speaking about, you understand that there are those that it's not just about, a color was one of the reasons they used, and that's based on ideology. So now they're using the same thing, for example. And some of the Jewish people going to some of the universities going through the same thing we've been through. And some of the people in the country are going along with it. They work back doing Jim Crow time. It won't work then, because Dr. King said, unless we learn to live together, brother, we'll perish together as food. Mm-hmm. So we had a situation going in America that we're being divided. Even Abraham Lincoln said he ran as a Senate, ran for the Senate, and he lost. He ran on the idea that our country divided and house divided cannot stand. And his friends told me he wasn't going to win on that. But when the house fell, then he became the president of the United States. And that's where the Emancipation Proclamation came in.
Is there a desire on the part of students to learn about this part of history?
Yes, it is, because it's one thing to read about it in our history books, but another thing now, someone there that can ask questions, because one of the things we do when we go around, but they have an opportunity to ask questions, and they're very insightful. One of the things they want to know is how to deal with it. Strangely, what happens that people can be, I guess one of the words indoctrinated into is, it's sort of like there's a difference between getting in water, like you're going to go swimming. There's a difference between just diving in there and getting submerged, as opposed to putting your toe in there and in your foot. And gradually, by the time they realize it, they're totally submerged, and that's where we are right now in some of the people in this country. And then I realize the danger that we're in right now. There are powers affected trying to change this to a one-party system where all the people in this country will be made subjects of the government. And that's not what this country was founded to be. It was founded to be a government of we. It was founded to be we the people, not they the government. Matter of fact, the second sentence of the Declaration of Independence says, we hold these truths self-evident, that all men are created people, that they have been endowed, that they are created with certain unalienable rights, and among these of life, in the pursuit of happiness. And governments are instituted by men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed and not the government. So we have people sitting in the halls of Congress and other various states where they're elected. They think that we work for them, but they work for us. And then we have people out here that believe that different generations that the world started with them, but it didn't. That's a history here. As a matter of fact, I understand in Cuba, they have erased the history, so the people don't have anything to go by as to what frame of reference should they have based on where they are right now.
I love that you brought up the Declaration of Independence, because since it's America's 250th birthday, we've been talking about the Declaration and the founding principles a lot on the show, and I think that when we look back on history, the civil rights movement was really one of the great movements and real revolutions in the country. And the amazing thing about it is that it was done. The change came about without a violent revolution. And I give the leaders, Dr. King and others, such credit what you did is an example of that. If it's taking that action, but stopping short of violence, even though you might be subjected to violence. Plenty of people were, but going and making your voices heard, organizing, and bringing that pressure to to change our nation and really live into what the Declaration says we should be as a nation. I just think that's amazing.
Right.
What do you? Yeah.
Well, David, one of the things is that our focus has been on education, which is great, on knowledge. But what we have not done is that we have not transmitted civilization as to what brought us to the place we are right now. So history in a lot of places is not a requirement. Cities is not a requirement where you learn how a bill becomes a law. As far as writing is concerned, that's not a requirement. So the person trying to read the Declaration of Independence and it's in cursive, then they can't read it. And kids are being taught now what to think as opposed to how to think. And if they know how to go do the research and find out. So it's a plan that they have that they want to change this country. And I don't know why those people want to change the country, not understand it's going to change them also, because when, cause and effect starts. And so what we have right now is, like, for example, we have what we allow to happen now is that we're a strong country as far as armed forces are concerned, but now we're not concentrated on that. And what's happening is that some of the powers that are trying to take us over want to change America totally to be like them. And that's not what this country was found to be, because when people came here, they came here. One of the reasons was to be able to practice their religions they felt they wanted to. Freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom to come together like we did, freedom to do it in a peaceful movement. And I think it started for what we're dealing with right now. It started back in 2020. When they had riots, and the news media called them peaceful movements, where now they're saying that defunding the police, and so law and order is one of the things we're dealing with right now, where they have a two-tier system, where we have a revolving door, and the law-abiding citizens of this country have become very apprehensive about being out in the public, so they're trying to bully us to silence. And so we have to, those of us that understand that what our requirements are as a system, we have to stand up and be counted and use due process to change things. It has a law that you don't like. Then you go through the due process and see if you get a change, but unless it changes, then you can't do that, because we use a peaceful movement, because we can peacefully assemble, and we because that builds up, but riots tear down. And see, when I lived in New York, I lived during it one time when I was living there, had a riot break out there. So I've seen that. When I came back to A&T after getting in the military, and I started back to A&T in '69, and they had a riot break out on campus there. And to show you how things have changed, the governor of North Carolina at that time was a named the Governor Scott. He said the riots don't stop. They said, if the riots don't stop, so I'll bring a tank and over the campus. As a matter of fact, one of the students got killed there during that time. And so I understand I've been in the middle of both of them. And it was my intention any times that I was involved in them, but I found out through things that I've dealt with it when I'm called into something. And I agree with it. I'll stand up. Because, see, if we don't, Ronald Reagan said we are one generation away from losing our freedom, so how do we get it back? And also he said, and these are things that I continue to remind of, because he said that he also said that nine of the worst words you can hear is, I'm from the government, I'm here to help. And the government can be more powerful than anything else. Because just because you're in a position does not mean you have the integrity or knowledge, because right now, outside the opportunity after the civil rights movement, God took me on the backside of the mountain for almost 4 years, and I was in business for myself. So I really found out how this country works. I was in financial services, so I did mortgage investments and things like that. So I understand about the free market capitalism system. And when you put an elected official into elect them in the office and they don't understand the free market system, it's like put a square peg in a round hole, and they have good intentions, but they're going south when we should be going north.
Yeah.
And so we have to be well aware of what is required of us as citizens. We need more citizens participating, because when you look at voting, how many people are voting versus how many people are qualified to vote. And that's one of the things I would change things, because that's what Thomas Jefferson said, America is an idea in the minds of men. It meant that the country should change the direction according to the way that the citizens see it. But that's not what's happening, because we have even local elections. You have people, when you have meetings, when you have county meetings, when you have PTA meetings, when you have citywide meetings, how many of the citizens go there? They say they're too busy, but the little time they have is being taken away and they don't realize it. One of the things I share with people all the time is that you need to know what happened in rise and fall of the Roman Empire, because all the way to the end, it didn't know what was happening. Even like right now, we have some of the people in this country saying that the Holocaust didn't exist. Well, I bet it's different. And so when they don't understand, there are people that intend, it's like, I can't remember who said it. It said that we must bind the people the government down to the Constitution, to change the Constitution. Because you have people there that they think that whatever they think they're supposed to do. And our education system has failed us in that where did they get their education from? They went through the system that said that, and talk about content of character. And that's why I have a program now called Content of Character Teacher, trying to teach our students how much character means. And they're during your time that you're going through the education system, that's your job. Just like parents and people out here working, that's their job. So what kind of student you are, a lot of ways directly reflects how kind of citizen you are as far as America's concerned. This is a great but imperfect country, and we have to understand that unless we learn to live together, brothers and parents together as food. And that's what's happening right now in this country. Very, very, very divided. And there are people who think that I can just go do what I want to do regardless of the law, when we have this a moving doorway, a revolving doorway. The student says does basic law today and he's out tomorrow. So what consequences is that?
Yeah, I mean, such wisdom that you've shared with us. I'm so glad that you're able to join us, Clarence. You're clearly a student of history, and I just love that you yourself were part of making history and really changing the nation for the better. I really appreciate you sharing your story with us, your life experience, and your words of wisdom. Thanks so much for joining us.
Well, now one of James is pass the torch of liberty to the coming generation.
Mm-hmm.
I think about our posterity, my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren. What kind of country will we live in? When they look at our mail, what will they say about me as a person or whoever a person? Did we sit on the sideline like thinkers, or did we defend this country? Did we allow ourselves to move like the King George III? Or are we defending this country? So the bottom line is, where are the citizens of the country? Where are your footsteps?
Amen. Well, Clarence, thanks so much for joining us, and we really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome, David. I enjoy talking to you.
Thanks. Hey, folks, if you like this episode and would like to stay connected with the podcast, be sure to like our channels, as well as following us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And always remember, freedom and liberty are easily taken for granted. Don't take them for granted. Go out there and defend liberty. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to American Potential. You may listen to more stories from Americans working every day to expand freedom and opportunity in their communities by visiting AmericanPotential.com.